Well, here we are again, getting ready to work on the F350. We had to make a trip to the landfill the other day, yesterday in fact. On the way back, I noticed that the wheel was starting to turn a bit heavily to the left, and I smelled something burning, heat, whatever you want to call it, coming through into the cab. So that gave me the clue that something was going wrong with a tire, a wheel. So I pulled over and discovered that the brake rotor and caliper, etc., was extremely hot. So I went a little bit further, decided I couldn't make it until it cooled down. So I pulled into a boat launch area so I could fill up a little jug with water. So I walked back and forth from the boat launch to the truck, splashing water on it till I got it to cool down so it wasn't sizzling anymore. And then I was only about 3 or 4 miles away from home. So once I got it to that point, I drove it the rest of the way here. So now we got to take this apart and check out that caliper and find out what's gone wrong. And obviously what parts do I need to go buy. So we'll be back. Well, I want to find out if there's any buildup pressure in the line. I don't think the line is damaged in any manner, but that one's gonna be rough. It's a 3/8. Let me get a right wrench on here. Alright, I broke it free, so I don't think there's any pressure. Let's check. No, it's just coming out normally. So tells me it's not a lot of buildup pressure in the line. So I don't think the line was damaged in any manner. So it's got to be probably with the caliper. So let me just press forward and get this caliper off. Alright, the 13mm headed bolts came out normally. So see if I can get there we go. Yeah, I can definitely smell burnt material. Well, they look hot, but or like they were hot. You can see this just torched. Rubber's still good. I don't see anything major. There's one pad. Still has a lot of material on it. Yeah, a bit shiny. Nothing's broken. The rotor itself, I mean, it could be better, but I've seen worse. It's still on the road. I mean, doesn't have a heck of a lot of raised grooves here. It is very, very lightly. Although there's a lot of material has been left on the rotor. It's possible that these shoes just weren't retracting after use. Or not shoes, but yeah, they've been torched. Still look intact. Once again, still have quite a bit of material. Yeah. Let me get a clamp on this and see if I can press the pistons back, and be back in a minute. Alright, well, there's nothing wrong with the bracket. I mean, it's just a piece of metal. sliders are good. This one's loose, but all I gotta do is bend it a little bit. Clean it up a little bit, put a little bit of grease on it. There's really nothing wrong at all with this. Nothing to look at. So now we're back to, is the rotor warped? Yeah, I guess there's no way around it. I'm going to pull the hub off and we'll check it out. So just a note, it spins quite well. No noise, no friction. And even though it overheated like crazy yesterday, the bearing grease did not run out. So I think the heat was mainly centered on the rotor and not the any of the bearing surface. So what I was experiencing had nothing to do with the bearings. So let me pop this out. Alright, so what do we know? Not much. Although I suspect that something caused a pad to drag and not retract. I mean, this surface is rusty and not completely flat because of the rust. Same here. Got no issues here. Caliper does compress. The pistons compress. The boots are good. So I think it just bound up. Could be a combination of this being loose, rust on the edges. Not much else I can see. I don't have a major flat surface to check the rotor, but I do have a piece of glass, and it's definitely flat enough for this purpose. There's absolutely no movement anywhere, and I cannot see any gaps at all. So it's definitely flat. So what now? Guess I'm just going to clean everything up. I'm going to get some good brake grease. Clean these edges up really good. Tweak that so it fits in there snugly. The grease with the bearings, yeah, it doesn't smell burnt. Once you smell burnt grease, you'll know it. But no, this grease is quite good. It's not been overheated. Mildly contemplating replacing the caliper, but overall, besides the heat it received, it's in good condition. I see nothing wrong with it. So we'll just clean it all up and put it back together, and then I'll activate the brakes and watch the pads and see how when the pressure lets off, if they pull back like they should just a little bit. So we'll be back. Alright, so what do we know so far? Well, I still haven't found anything majorly defective, so I'm going to do a clean and re-lube. I cleaned up the mounting tabs on the pads here. Got the corrosion off in the places it needs to be. I crimped that tighter so it fits nice and snug. Kind of, sort of, yeah, fits snug. And I'll put some grease on the inside of that. I'll put some grease on the back side of those. And I'm going to re-lube the front bearing. The back bearing looks good. I'll put a glob in there. And I pulled one of the pins on the caliper. It was, well, it's lubed. It slid easily. So I'll just add a little bit more lube on both of them and call that good. And I'm going to reassemble. Alright, got the front bearing re-lubed. Lubed the back without removing it. And then got the hub back on. And now I'm lubing up the caliper pins. Get them back in there. They slide quite easily. In fact, they slid fairly good to begin with. So I don't think there was any fault with them originally. Yeah. good movement. And I'm going to clean up these tabs here. Get the bracket back on. And then get the pads on. Back in a sec. Alright, a bit more on the grease issue. First off, these were extremely dry. There was no grease anywhere. Either it wasn't applied by previous people or it just kind of wore out. I don't know. So I put some here and here. Same place up here. Of course, I lubed the pins. Then on the back of the pads, the back side, I just put a light coating at the impact area with the pistons. And yeah, you don't want to do so much that it's going to leak onto the actual pads. Just a light coating. It'll sit there for quite a long time. And I'll give it a squirt down a little bit after I get it assembled. Make sure there's no more on the rotors. I did put some anti-seize on the caliper bracket bolts because they were pretty hard to get off. So hopefully that'll help me next time. Otherwise, it's time to get the pads on the caliper and the caliper installed. Okay, I've got it all reassembled. I've got it bled. I also took the tire off the other side and I lubed it up in the proper places and bled it again also. This one works, it operates, but it doesn't seem to release as quickly as the other side. I mean, I can turn it, but it's fairly hard versus the other side. It's easy. I'm going to give it one more spin down the road, and if it doesn't clear up just by the fact that I lubed it, then I'm probably going to have to bring it back in, pull the caliper and replace it. I'm just not going to mess with it anymore. But I mean, technically it looks like it should work. So like I said, I'll put the tires on it, give it a run, and we'll see what happens. Well, I thought about it. Even though I cleaned it up and it seems to be operating better, it's not operating to the point that I'm going to feel completely 100% confident in it. So, of course, we hit NAPA. And this is what I'm trying to show you, how it should operate. If I can get to that. There we go. I need two hands to do this. I need to buy a tripod. Alright, so see how easy that slides on this, on the pins? One hand. Just very easy. I'd taken this apart, I'd cleaned it up, re-lubed it, and I thought it was sliding well, but after comparing it with the new, I can tell it was not. It slid, but just not to the not as good as new. So there we are. So I'm taking it back off, and I was able to get the caliper with bracket actually for less than what I would have paid for the caliper by itself from NAPA. So I don't understand how they do their pricing, but it's got a $40 core return, so that's good too. So let me get this swapped out. I've already got it loosened up. Just gotta pull the banjo bolt out, and I'm gonna do it fairly quick. I won't be able to film it because I don't want to introduce or I don't want air to, as much air. I want to limit the amount of air that's going to be introduced into the line as much as possible. So I'm going to try to go really fast. So we'll be back. All right, got the new one on. Kind of ran out of light last night, but it's on there, looks good. And I'm just double checking here. Everything's torqued down. Torqued the banjo bolt down, the caliper to bracket bolts, and of course the bracket to steering knuckle bolt. which I couldn't get a torque wrench on that, so I just tightened it as far as I physically could. So I'm pretty sure it's close to 140. And I don't need that in there anymore. Get that out in a second. Anyway, I'm getting ready to bleed them, and we'll go from there. I suspect I may have to adjust the rear brakes after this, because I have some idea that the front brakes are doing more of the work. So might have to adjust those rear brakes. I'll check it out. Anyway, get the bleed job done first. We'll be back. I just opened up the valve. Step on the pedal. All right, that was 3 pumps on the pedal. Check the reservoir. Yeah, that's got enough. I'll do one more. Maybe 2 more. Alright, since I couldn't see, I have to turn the camera off and watch the film myself. We'll be back. Okay, I just watched the video, and I see I was still getting air out on the, what was that, 3/5 pump. So, I'll open the valve up and pump it a little bit more. Of course, I expected some air to get purged out of the line. We'll see. Okay, there's 2 more pumps. Let me check. Alright, so that was 7 pumps. I'm still getting a little bit of air out. I think I'll do it 3 more pumps and see how it goes. Open up the valve again. Alright, that was 3. Let me close the valve. And let me check the video. Alright, well, we got it all back together. Lug nuts tightened down, and now it's time for the road trip and test it out. We'll be back. So far, so good. We're braking. Normally, I should say. Yeah. Feels good. No change in the pedal when I pump it up, so that's good too. Alright, put the camera down here. Well, I went down the road, stopped a few times to checked the temperature on the rims and the rotors with my hand. Yeah, they're warm, but definitely not hot to the touch. So I'm going to call it good. Seems to be running good and braking well.